Hello and welcome to the Inns of Court Armoured Car Regiment channel. Today we'll be covering the events that the regiment partook on June the 6th. However, this is entirely exclusive to C Squadron in this instance. The reason being is that this is obviously covering D-Day and Operation Overlord, which C Squadron was the sole partaker in from the regiment. Now, this video will be slightly unique in its context because as we're going through, I'll be providing times to certain events. Now, these times are not entirely accurate and are simply provided in order to try and give some context to the sequence of events upon the day. The reason being is there's a lot of different sources of information, and compiling it all together and trying to put some kind of context on it, I think allows us to follow the events a lot better, as it gives us an idea of who's going where, what's happening at what kind of times. Most accounts generally kind of blur together in multiple events, and it almost seems like they're all happening at the same time when in reality they're not, with a few times given here or there or vague references to certain things. So the way I've laid it out is just to lay it out in some form of context, so don't take the times provided as entirely as gospel, but it just gives an idea of vaguely when events were happening. So, without much further ado, let's crack on. June the 6th, 06:30 hours. Both landing craft were a hive of activity as pyjama-clad figures shaved in cold water. Others were stowing blankets and bedrolls, while a lucky few were emerging from a fitful sleep. 07:05 hours. H hour minus 30 minutes. Bombardment of the beach and the enemy emplacements began. The surrounding destroyers and cruisers began to pound the enemy positions. 07:30 hours. H hour minus 5 minutes. Most felt too sick to eat breakfast, but the few with stomachs of steel made do with bully beef and oat biscuits. Final stowing of gear was completed, and it was now just a case of waiting. Overhead, Allied aircraft were heard and seen through gaps in the clouds as they went about their sorties. 07:35 hours. H hour for Mike sector off Juno Beach. However, due to sea and visibility conditions, the first assault wave is delayed by 10 minutes. H hour was 3 hours after the optimum rising tide. This delay presented a difficult situation as the beach obstacles would be already partially submerged and engineers would be unable to clear paths to the beach. This meant that landing craft would need to feel their way in over obstacles and mines. 07:45 hours. H hour plus 10 minutes. Through clouds of smoke and haze, the first assault wave could be seen to be coming ashore. Machine gun tracer fire swept the beaches, while mortar bombs splashed down among the assaulting infantry. 0800 hours. H hour plus 25 minutes. The Inns of Court LCTs begin to approach the beach, and to the members of the squadron, it's initially believed that this is it. But in an anticlimax, the landing craft suddenly turn 90 degrees and start sailing parallel to the coast. During this dummy run, it seems that the final formation of the landing craft is agreed upon. LCT 513 will be on the left, while LCT 507 will be on the right, with the landing craft sailing in side by side. 0810 hours. H hour plus 35 minutes. The Inns of Court's landing officer and liaison officers who were attached to flanking units land upon the beaches, carried ashore in landing craft of other units. 08:15 hours. H hour plus 40 minutes. The word is given that the true final approach is about to begin, and in a stage of preparation, the crews start up their engines aboard the LCTs. 08:20 hours. H hour plus 45 minutes. The pair of LCTs begin their final approach towards June Mike Green Beach. 08:30 hours. H hour plus 55 minutes. The Inns of Court landing craft are nearing the beach, feeling their way ashore through the submerged obstacles and mines. However, tragedy strikes. LCT 513 hits a mined obstacle with its starboard bow, tearing a hole through the keel and deck plates. 2 Dingo scout cars take the full force of the explosion, and the restraining chains on the landing craft's ramp mechanism are shattered loose. With the ramp buckling and dropping into 5 feet of water, Sergeant Pepper is hit in the feet by shards, and Corporal Llewellyn sustains a nasty head wound. Several others are injured, including Royal Navy personnel. The craft commander reverses the vessel from the obstacle it has just hit in order to try and approach the beach again. However, the cross-swell pushes the landing craft into another mined obstacle, which detonates astern. The second mine floods the engine room and the galley, and with this final blow, LCT 513 settles stern first. Roughly 30% of the landing craft at Juno were destroyed or damaged in a similar way, and the shallows off Juno Beach were scattered with the broken keels of such victims. 08:35 hours, HR plus 1 hour. LCT 507 has hit the beach at the desired depth of 1 to 2 feet. As its ramp descends, its port side ramp extension is pierced by a hedgehog beach obstacle. Thankfully, there is just enough room on the ramp for the cars to exit the landing craft, and within 7 minutes, LCT 507 has completely unloaded and is withdrawing from the beach. 08:40 hours. The vehicles landed by LCT 507 make their way up the beach, taking shelter behind the sand dunes. Here they strip off their waterproofing materials that they had previously and painstakingly applied to their vehicles. Meanwhile, aboard LCT 513, the 2 forward Dingo scout cars that took the impact of the first mine are pushed clear off the ramp into the shallows. Before doing so, Padre Lance grabs his communion vessels, medical box and bedroll from his Dingo. Once the 2 Dingo scout cars are pushed over the buckled ramp, they are swept aside by the cross-swell. 08:45 hours. In an attempt of desperation, it's decided upon LCT 513 that they must try and land before the tide rises any further. The next 2 vehicles in the LCT, 2 M5 half-tracks, are driven off the ramp, but are quickly swamped and swept away by the swell. All crew are saved, but the vehicles and their precious explosives are lost to the sea. Much profanity is heard from the now wet and cold Sergeant Major, as a change of clothes and towels are found for those soaked. It's now decided that the rest of the vehicles aboard LCT 513 will need to wait for the tide to recede, expected to be in 5 hours' time. In the meantime, there is nothing more that can be done, and with the downtime, those who are not eaten earlier due to seasickness cook up breakfast in order to pass the time in much calmer waters. 08:50 hours. Getting off the beach wasn't going as originally planned. Resistance by the enemy was strong, and the friendly infantry was still on the dunes or shortly inland. Due to the sea conditions, the DD tanks had to be brought in closer by their LCTs before beginning their swim ashore. But with the obstacles, mines and crosswell, few had made it ashore, almost making the Inns of Court the first vehicles upon the beach at their sector. 08:55 hours. Without the heavy support of their DD tanks, the infantry continued to press home their attack. The Inns of Court awaited a clear beach exit before proceeding with their operation. 09:20 hours, HR plus 105 minutes. Having survived its withdrawal from the beach, LCT 507 leaves its offshore holding area and begins the long trip back to Southampton. 10:20 hours. The infantry announced that the woods and general area just beyond the beach were clear, and that they had begun to move inland. This meant that the only thing holding up the Inns of Court was the lack of a clear and mine-free exit. 10:30 hours, HR plus 3 hours. It's decided by the Inns of Court upon the beach to try the beach exits, even though they hadn't been fully cleared. The left-hand exit was attempted by Corporal Kelly's scout car, which immediately hit a mine and disposed of Will. Thankfully, the crew were unharmed. The right-hand exit is attempted by Troop 3 under the command of Lieutenant O.J. Chanat. The exit is negotiated without mishap, and Troop 3 begins to head west towards La Riviere. 10:40 hours. Following in the tyre tracks of Troop 3, Troop 3A under Lieutenant P.R.D. Shaw negotiate the right-hand beach exit. Having reached the lateral road, they are joined by Colonel Bingley in a scout car. With both the Colonel's scout car and Troop 3A halted at the beach exit, as Colonel Bingley issues final instructions to Lieutenant Shaw, who is aboard his Daimler armoured car, it quickly comes to light that the woods inland are in fact not clear, as the Allied infantry had previously announced, and an 88mm shell flashes between the Colonel's scout car and Lieutenant Shaw's Daimler armoured car. Before any man could fully appreciate where the enemy fire had come from, a second shot from the 88 rips its way through Lieutenant Shaw's Daimler armoured car, hitting it low in the front. The driver, Trooper Al Dixon, is instantly killed as the shell rips through the armoured car. The gunner, Trooper Carr, is injured in the leg and right hand, while Lieutenant Shaw is thrown from the vehicle, landing in a roadside ditch. It's found that the shell impact has also shattered Lieutenant Shaw's leg. He is evacuated to the first aid point on the beach, but later dies of his wounds due to blood loss and shock. The location where Lieutenant Shaw's Daimler armoured car was hit is today now marked by a memorial to the Inns of Court Regiment. The memorial reads, "The Inns of Court Regiment, C Squadron, landed here with their armoured cars on the 6th of June 1944, together with a contingent of Royal Engineers, to carry out a special mission. This stone stands as a memorial to them and to the whole regiment in the liberating campaign from Normandy to the Baltic Sea from June 1944 to May 1945, dedicated to the noble living and the noble dead." 1100 hours. Troop 3 on the lateral road towards La Riviere have run into a defended roadblock. While engaging the enemy, the Daimler armoured car is hit and kills Lieutenant O.J. Chanat and Trooper W. Hall. Having seen this, Sergeant J. Greenaway advances his Dingo scout car into the fray to rescue the driver. For these actions, Sergeant Greenaway is awarded the military medal. 11:30 hours. Troops 2, 5A and 6A exit the beach, and with the knowledge that the lateral road to La Riviere is blocked, they head towards Grey-sur-Mer. 11:40 hours. HR plus 4 hours. It is announced that the left beach exit has been cleared, but priority is given to anti-tank guns. 1200 hours. Troops 2, 5A and 6A have reached Bandville, but are delayed by a fierce infantry battle for the village. 13:15 hours. When the water was shallow enough, LCT 513 again attempted to unload. Firstly, the Daimler armoured cars waded ashore, with water surging up to halfway around the turrets. As the tide slowly went out further, the Daimler Dingo scout cars were able to make it ashore under their own power. As for the half-tracks, these were towed ashore by a bulldozer. Initially a train of 3 half-tracks were chained together for towing, but once a chain snapped between the first and the second half-track, it was decided to tow them ashore one by one. As the vehicles from LCT 513 made it ashore and behind the dunes, the crews began stripping the waterproofing materials from their vehicles. 13:30 hours. HR plus 6 hours. Troop 4 and 4A are immediately ordered to the right-hand beach exit. While negotiating the exit, Sergeant Sims' Dingo scout car is hit by a mine for the loss of a wheel. The remainder of Troop 4A managed to negotiate the beach exit and pass the wreckage of Lieutenant Shaw's burned-out armoured car, and 3 French civilians waving them off. 13:45 hours. Troop 4 now tries the left beach exit with Troop 2A. While negotiating the exit, 2 mines detonate, but thankfully do not cause any damage to the vehicles. 1400 hours. The tide of the battle at Banville has turned, and the front line has moved on further inland, with the only remaining resistance in Banville being a persistent sniper in the church tower. The sniper's demise is brought about by coordinated fire from the 3 Daimler armoured cars present. 14:15 hours. Troop 5A and 6A have managed to push on to Villers-le-Sec. Here a large number of infantry are encountered, and a running battle on the far end of the village begins. Piddock's good shooting destroys an enemy transport, putting an armour-piercing shell through its engine block from his Daimler armoured car. 14:20 hours. Troops 5A and 6A are now joined by Troop 4. Troops 6A and 4 are now ordered to bypass the resistance at the far end of Villers-le-Sec by taking the north-eastern road out of the village towards Crepon. 14:30 hours. H-hour plus 7 hours. This whole time Villers-le-Sec has been under fire from German 88s positioned on the southern bank of the Somme. These guns loudly herald the arrival of C Squadron's headquarters troop as they traverse the open road into the village, thankfully scoring no hits. The squadron headquarters proceed to set up in a field near the church and spend some time trying to avoid the lingering snipers in the village. These snipers are eventually stalked and captured by the regiment sergeant major. 14:40 hours. Troop 4 and 6A have reached the crossroads outside Crepon, where they are ambushed by Panzerfaust and anti-tank guns. The second shot from the anti-tank guns hits the end of the barrel of Lieutenant Reeves' Daimler armoured car of Troop 4, causing the turret to spin at an incredible speed. Although dazed, the crew are thankfully unhurt, and Troop 4 and 6A are able to withdraw, after which they are set upon by thunderbolts, the start of a recurring theme for the Inns of Court. 1500 hours. Troops 1, 2A and 4A head south from Trastevere, cross the River Soule towards Cruilly, pushing through groups of friendly infantry. At this point, friendly infantry and armourer were engaging the enemy in sporadic fights. 15:15 hours. Troop 6 heads south from Villers-le-Sec over the Soule towards St Gabriel. Here, Lieutenant P.S. War has a frightful encounter as he rounds a corner and is faced by a Marder 75mm self-propelled gun. Thankfully, the crew are all dead, even though the engine is still ticking. 15:30 hours. HR plus 8 hours. Awareness among Allied troops of the Inns of Court's task and vehicles wasn't well known. This led to a Canadian tank firing upon Sergeant J. Wright's scout car of Troop 4A south of Chateau de Brec, the impact killing Sergeant Wright and Trooper T. Smith outright. 1600 hours. Troop 5 joins Troops 1 and 2A through Cruilly on the southern route. However, they are unable to make much more of an advance due to enemy resistance south of the village. 16:30 hours. HR plus 9 hours. Villers-le-Sec is now clear, and Troops 2, 4, 5A and 6A now press along the lateral road towards Bayeux. The enemy appears to be retreating fairly steadily, but is not known by how far. 1800 hours. Troop 2, 4, 5A and 6A are ordered to push south towards the Bayeux-Caen railway and try to regain contact with the enemy. 2000 hours. Troops 2, 4, 5A and 6A find the enemy patrolling just north of the Bayeux-Caen railway. 2100 hours. Allied troops filter into the area north of the Bayeux-Caen railway, so Troops 2, 4, 5A and 6A withdraw a short way. At the end of the day, the positions of the Inns of Court were as follows. Troops 2, 4, 5A and 6A are harboured north of the Bayeux-Caen railway. Troops 1, 2A, 5 and 6 are harboured south of Cruilly. The headquarters troop is set up in a field near the church at Villers-le-Sec. Troops 3, 1A, 3A, 4A have all lost vehicles and crew, and therefore were no longer effective in being able to carry out their mission. It is unknown what actions the survivors carried out, but it can be assumed that they were either held in reserve at the squadron headquarters or folded into the other active troops as reinforcements. The day's operations had resulted in heavy casualties. 6 were killed, with 3 injured. Vehicles lost so far were 5 Dingo scout cars, 1 Daimler armoured car and 2 M5 half-tracks. In addition to the previously mentioned military medal awarded to Sergeant Greenaway, there is also a military cross awarded to Captain Gill, the Inns of Court liaison officer, for his gallantry on the beaches that day. Unfortunately, the mission hadn't been pulled off according to plan, owing to the hampered landing of the squadron, the slow development of the exit off the beach, and the stiffer than expected resistance as the troops had moved inland. The element of surprise had long gone, which would lead to further challenges in the coming days. References are now on screen, and I hope you can join me for June the 7th, which will be, hopefully, a lot shorter. Until next time, cheerio.